Welcome to Fight Town podcast with Sport the Song, as myself, Alex the Box, and Rob Boxing Shrew look back at Neilson Boxing shows in Swindon on Saturday night and a look forward to the Neilson Boxing show at the York Hall also on Saturday night. Rob, let's have a look at Swindon. It was a great night of boxing again from Neilson Boxing. It looked like a fantastic show. Where should we start with Swindon?
Connor?
Absolutely, yeah.
Comfortable. I think it looked comfortable, didn't it?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it was a win on points.
Connor Gray,
yeah, Conor Gray, and like you said, it looked like it was a comfortable victory, for Conor Gray. But he's going places. I think that makes him 5-0 now. So yeah, it's intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I know he probably would have wanted a stoppage, but he was a tough guy. So I'd be pleased to move on. And by all accounts, I think he's going to be out again before the end of the year, which would be good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And that was fought at lightweight, wasn't it?
Which is six rounder.
Yeah, which as we well know in the world of boxing is a very intriguing division to be. And I know it's obviously we're looking at UK boxers at the moment, but a win's a win, isn't it? And
absolutely.
Especially against someone like Christian Flores, who has been there, got the t-shirt, hasn't he?
Yeah, and like we said last week when we were sort of previewing this show, he's still dangerous because and Conor didn't win every round. He won 5 rounds to 1. So, and I know that is convincing. So he showed his class as we thought he would. But Lopez Flores, the big star next to his name, or asterisk next to his name, was the fact that yes, he had a losing record, but of his 13 wins, 11 of them were by knockout. So he was, if he catches you, he gets you out of there. So Conor would have had to have been switched on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think we saw that last week with the Queensbury show. There was an 8-0 boxer against what would be considered to be a journeyman.
You would, yeah.
It can.
Oh, Myrana, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it can at this level, Rob. It can go wrong, can't it? So these aren't fights that you look at on paper and say, it's a given, is it? So it's a good win for Conor Gray.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. And going down the list, our friend of the podcast, Mr. Liam O'Hare, the ballerina of boxing, got himself another win, which pushes him to, is that 5-0 for Liam
yeah,
O'Hare?
5-0, yeah.
5-0, yeah.
Again, convincing points win again. I think it was 5 rounds and a round shared, so 60 points to 55. I had a quick chat with Liam afterwards. I messaged him to say congratulations. Obviously, he's a friend of the pod. We've had him on before, and he said that he loved the fact that he was in against a guy who came forward. He was because he's his first few opponents as pro. They were very much there to be hit and to survive. Whereas, this fella, Octavian, he came forward and he was, younger than some of the other lads that he'd fought as well. So I think he really enjoyed it. And did you see his ring walk that Chima put up? Dylan Chima was there on Saturday and he put a video up and he did like a little pirouette on the stage as he was doing his ring walk as well. It's brilliant.
It's fantastic. No, it's great. And he's hit a niche there with the ballet stuff. And
absolutely.
It must be off-putting for his opponents to see this ballerina coming into the ring, and then they get absolutely, they get the head boxed off by Liam O'Hare, because as we well know, and like you just alluded to, Rob, he is outboxing all of his opponents so far.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sort of use this mantra. I've used it a lot recently, but with these boxers who are sort of 3-0, 5-0, they are coming up against, very sort of rugged and sort of robust journeymen. And it's not easy when you're trying to sort of apply your style and trade to a fight with someone who's come to survive. And I think what we're going to find, especially with Liam O'Hare, is that when he's dragged into the trenches a little bit or dragged deeper into fights, I think we're going to see, a lot more from him. And we're going to speak to Shabir Haidary again later on in the podcast. And I think when we spoke to him, it was obvious that you know, it's difficult fighting these journeymen, isn't it?
Of course it is. And I would imagine Liam would have enjoyed it a lot more on Saturday than, you know, just finding a punch bag that he's trying to take out of there. And I think as he comes up against more fighters who are going to be more, you know, come forward with, you know, slightly better records as well, I think the stoppages will start coming as well, because I think that's the only thing missing right now, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. But however, I'm sure people like Mark Neilson and everyone at Neilson Boxing won't be pushing that sort of for those stoppage wins, because
Of course,
I think eventually with time they will come. And like I said before, you know, as soon as counter punching comes into it, where you're being put under pressure, you know, that's when a lot of knockouts come about. So where should we have a look next, Rob, down at this Swindon show?
Mr. Kajawa.
Yes, Tosin Kajawa. It was a points victory in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, it was wide again. It really was. But yeah, I mean, he had a last minute replacement. When we actually prepped the show last week, previewed the show, we had a certain guy in mind. I think that he, for whatever reason, withdrew, and so he did have a last minute replacement. You know, so it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult when you're training for this fighter and that fighter, and fighters keep pulling out. It must be so frustrating. So, and especially for someone like him who, you know, he's developing this reputation of being heavy-handed. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's gone to 7-0, but he's still got 5 stoppages, so it's still a good record. But it probably would have been a little bit frustrating, but it was conclusive, wasn't it?
Absolutely, Rob. Yeah, it was conclusive, and you know, the only thing you can take from those types of fights, it was 6 rounds. It's 6 rounds in the bank, and you just move on, don't you?
Yeah.
And like we said, he still keeps that record intact. I think KOs can sometimes be a bit misleading, especially at these early stages of someone's career. So it's interesting to see. Now, where should we have a look next?
Should we go Johnny Ward? I mean, I laughed
Mr. Johnny
because
Ward.
We've had a lot of conversations about this since Saturday, haven't we?
We have indeed.
He's gone mini viral a little bit with his interview afterwards as well. But yeah, I mean, 90-second KO against a guy who hadn't been stopped in 6 fights, a tough guy. I mean, what more can you do than that, eh?
Well, I tell you what, we spoke to Johnny Ward last week, and you can, even from talking to him on a podcast, you can sense that ooze of confidence coming out of him. You know, he looks class, he looks strong, and he
talks well.
Yeah, he boxes so well, and he's exciting for the fans. I think Johnny Ward's got a big future ahead of him in boxing, and you know, he's talking the talk now. He's saying, you know, just get me in front of the people who have got the titles. And I think he called out a Mr. William Webber, didn't he?
The Southern Area champion.
Southern Area. So William Webber, if you're listening to the podcast, Mr. Johnny Ward is, I think, is after you.
Yeah, and I think the correct was William Webber. I don't know who you are, but I'm coming for you.
Indeed, and it was very impressive from Johnny Ward. I know Mark Neilson and everyone at Neilson Boxing are, you know, right behind him, and they, you know, they rate him very, very highly, and so they should, because it was a fantastic performance. Like you said, 90 seconds to get his man out there. I don't care who you're fighting in that ring. If you can get them out there in 90 seconds, that is some feat, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to seeing him out again. I could probably tell by the tone of my voice. Like, the fact we had him on, we heard the talk, and you know, a lot of fighters can talk, and it doesn't always materialize in the ring, you know, what's said, but he backed it up, didn't he? And short night's work, no overtime, you don't get paid for it, so good on him.
And against Constantine Alexandrov. And I think we mentioned last week about Constantine Alexandrov. And, you know, he's not an easy guy to get out of there, is he? He's not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination.
No, like I said, he hadn't been stopped in 6 fights. And, you know, he has been taken out quite a bit. We're not going to sit here and sugarcoat that. But for a journeyman of his record, and, you know, he spent a lot of time in the UK as well, fighting British fighters. So 6 points defeats in a row, you know, he's tough to get out of there, and Johnny made light work of him.
He did indeed. Congratulations to Johnny Ward. We are going to speak next Fight Town podcast listeners and Sport de Song listeners, we're going to speak with Shabir Haidary, who is a boxer who boxed on the same night in Swindon, didn't he, Rob? And he's a classy operator. We are going to speak to him about his style. He does switch between orthodox and southpaw, which is always very gracious,
isn't it? That is a nightmare for
yeah,
an opponent.
and he does it so gracefully in the ring as well. He's a stylish boxer, definitely one to look out for. But his career hasn't really got going through injury, which we're going to speak to Shabir about. But he got got a TKO victory against Jake Pollard, sorry, and that's that's going to be fantastic for his confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was his first KO off the back of a year out as well. That must have felt fantastic for him. In front of his friends and family who were down at Swindon, and Jake Pollard. On his record, you look at it and you think, you think terrible, wouldn't you, looking at his record? But he had only been stopped twice. In 37 fights. So he's a tough fucker, and he took him out in the second round. So, and it's hard to gauge when you're only at he's now at 2-0. But if you're going in your second fight and taking out a guy who's only been stopped twice in 37, that's a good way to start, isn't it?
I think so. And I think it's quite interesting to follow these boxers at these early stages as well, and see their sort of confidence shift towards, that higher level, because certainly, like you said, Rob, a knockout victory just builds confidence, doesn't it? So
it does. And I mean, again, just touching on my last couple of fights from that card, similar situations, really. We had Javon Henry, who was 2-0 at the time, has now gone 3-0 with a points victory. And Daniel Williams as well. He's gone to 2-0, same as Shabir, both with, good points wins. And it is early days. And, these guys are going to be kept very active by Mark and the team down there. And, especially Javon Henry, because believe it or not, he's 41 years old.
I know.
And is now 3-0. So, fair play to him for picking it up so late, and secondly, just he's getting straight stuck in, isn't he? And he's 3-0 already, and like I say, I think he'll be moved quite quickly, given his age and his record.
And you know what I say to that is, why not?
Absolutely.
If you're fit and able, and there might be a career in boxing for us yet, Rob. You never know.
You can give it a go, mate. I'll pass. But I couldn't fight my way out of a paper bag. I just like talking about it.
Not sure about it. Anyway, so listen, Fight Town podcast listeners, we are going to move on to the York Hall, the fantastic York Hall. October the 1st is going to be Saturday night, where Neilson Boxing returns to that fabulous venue. And what a night of boxing we got ahead of us, Rob. I'm going to start at the very top for the Southern Area title, and I'm telling you now, this is going to be an absolutely cracking fight. You've got Jordan Dujon versus Jack Martin. Very similar records at super welterweight. It's a 10-rounder. I mean, boxing fans are in for a treat, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, how often have we spoken on the pod about we love these sort of fights, don't we? Like, you can go and watch a world title fight and it's all glitzy and you get what you get, but we love the spit and sawdust of your your York Halls, where you've got your southern areas, you've got your English, your British titles. I mean, you love a British title, don't you? And
I love it,
and this is the first sort of step on the road towards that for these guys. And like you say, they very similar records. I believe it's their first any sort of title fight for both of them as well. And I mean, I don't really know who to go with either. What about yourself?
It's a tough one. I've watched Jordan Dujon fight at the York Hall, and he's a very stylish boxer. He had a fight against Maycock in what was a very competitive fight. It went to points, in which Dujon won. I think he might have won a unanimous decision, but he was very, very stylish, very slick, in and out boxer. And Jack Martin is a ferocious boxer. Once he gets that advantage, a little bit like Jack McGann, once he sees the opening and he sees that advantage, he takes it. And
he's a good front runner.
Yeah, it's a real clash of styles, and it's going to make for a fantastic fight. I can't put my name on a winner. I really
I think
can't.
you would make Jordan favourite, I think, just because I mean, I was having a look, and this is his 9th fight, and it'd be the 8th time he's fought at York Hall, and I think there'll be a lot. Familiarity is very, being comfortable is very, I know we're not talking about anything sort of boxing related really, but familiarity and being comfortable in an arena that you've boxed in pretty much your whole career to date.
Yeah.
That's got to be an advantage, hasn't it?
I think so. I do believe that will hold an advantage. I mean, if I had to put money on the fight, I'd potentially look at a Jordan Dujon points victory. But I know Jack Martin is explosive. And like I said before, if he finds an opening, he's very hard to get off. So it's going to be entertaining, that's for sure.
Brilliant.
So, that's going to be fantastic. What else have we got to look at on that card, Rob?
Well, chief support at the minute is an 8-round super welter fight. I think Neilson have had quite a few super welters out recently. And so it's a nice little division in its own stable. So we've got Billy Jackson versus Gideon Onyanani. And these guys have actually got identical records. They're both 4-0. Neither have got a stoppage yet. As they say, someone's always got to go.
Yeah, and you know what? It's very intriguing to see this type of fight, and it's a testament to Neilson Boxing and Mark for putting these types of fights together, because you could technically, start protecting your fighters and protecting those O's. But it's fantastic to see this second on the bill. Both fighters are protecting those O's.
At 4-0 as well. That's very rare.
Yeah, it is rare. And like I said before, it's testament to Neilson Boxing, because they, a lot of the shows they put on, that, a lot of the fights are 50-50s, and it's testament to them really, because this is going to be an absolutely cracking fight to watch.
Yeah,
and pure,
it's going to be a good warm up for the main event, definitely.
Just pure value for money as well for spectators.
Yeah.
So it's that'd be interesting. What else have we got looking down the bill?
Saqib Khan, he's called the showstopper, and so we'll see if he steals a show on Saturday. Obviously, there's a couple of big fights on there, and he's in with Bermain Sanchez, who's he's very, very well travelled. He's fought in the UK quite a lot. I think it's his 62nd fight or something, around 60. He's had around 60 fights, something like that. He's an older guy. He's sort of late 30s, but very similar to the gentleman we mentioned on the Swindon show. He's had 30 wins and 28 defeats, but 30 of his wins have been 22 of his 30 wins have been by knockout. So he's another one that Saqib should deal with him, but if Bermain Sanchez gets him hurt, he could trouble him. So it's another interesting one, and whoever's matchmaking these fights is onto something, because because it can't be boring.
No, and also if you think about Saqib Khan, if you're looking at ring craft and know-how in the ring, Bermain Sanchez has got that. He's been there. It's not going to phase him. Even the crowds at York Hall that are on top of him, it's not going to phase him. I think it's going to be a pretty decent fight, and quite close actually. Well, but like you said, Saqib Khan should come through it, but it's not a given.
No, and just we seem to be focusing more on his opponent here, but it's just emphasising how tough this could be for Saqib if he's not switched on. But Bermain actually fought Gideon Onyanani, who's also on the bill we just discussed, and got beat on points. So Saqib could he hasn't had a stoppage yet, so if he can go and get a stoppage, he'll have outdone Gideon, and suddenly you're comparing records of lads around a similar weight in the same stable, and it's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting, and like you said, it could be some statement for Saqib Khan as well.
Yeah,
if he can get that stoppage against Bermain Sanchez. Looking down here, Tommy Jacobs versus Josh Cook. Someone's always got to go. No, am I wrong? Is it the wrong way around? Perhaps, but it's a middleweight fight, 6-rounder. It could be a good kickstart for Tommy Jacobs, a chance for him to look good, maybe.
Yeah, well, he lost last time out, so he'll be looking to get back to winning ways. So I think this one, it's a good opponent for him. Let's not beat around the bush. Josh Cook, he hasn't won in 20 yet, but he's only been stopped once. So if Tommy can go in there, blast Josh Cook out of there, it'll be a statement to take out a guy who doesn't get stopped very often, and it'll just do the world of good for his confidence as well after coming off his first loss.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we're going to touch on Nicola Bark. I know there's not an opponent been set yet.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if that's changed, but just to touch on women's boxing at the moment, because it's just on an all-time high, isn't it? We've
I
got,
love it. Yeah,
we've got, spectatorship through the roof. We've got great boxers showing their skills against the. I think finally women's boxing is coming to the fore, and I think it's because we're seeing these talented individuals coming together now and having these fights, and it's good for Nicola Bark to get out on these shows and show what she can do, isn't it?
yeah, and I've always been an advocate, especially because there isn't, it's well documented that there isn't a massive amount of depth at the minute in women's boxing in certain divisions. So if you're good enough, you will get fast tracked. So it wouldn't surprise. I mean, she's already 2-0, Nicola. So
Yeah.
another win at the weekend. Like you said, we're not quite sure who she's in with yet, but if she can go in there, make a statement, maybe get her first stoppage as well. Things could move quite quickly for us. So, fingers crossed.
Yep, and Rob, finally looking at the final fights on the bill that night, I know we've got George Ellis, who was making his professional debut at super flyweight
Yeah,
against a Stephen Maguire, who we saw box
we
in
did. Yeah, in
Liverpool.
Liverpool. Yeah.
And he also, he didn't so much give Marcel Braithwaite a good fight, but
He
Braithwaite
didn't
couldn't.
disgrace himself.
No, he couldn't take him out, could he? And he really did give it a good try. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a tough challenge for George Ellis on his debut, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Same with Aliou Diallo as well. He's debuting this weekend as well against a veteran journeyman, I must say, in Lewis Van Potch. He's won 11, lost 149, and
Wow.
drawn 4. These are the guys we need in this sport. Like,
what has this man seen? Where's he been?
I know. He's already had 16 fights this year. Like, that is incredible.
We need to get him on the podcast. Let's
I'd love to. I'd love
Yeah.
to, because it's great getting prospects on and people who are riding a crest of a wave. But to hear that side, because if you take people like Lewis Van Potch out of the sport, it'd be done. And these prospects wouldn't get the chance to go in with these tough guys who fight week after week. Because they're not punch bags, Some of these guys, they do sneak good wins, and I love it. I love that part of the sport.
It's fantastic, isn't it? I just find it so intriguing.
Yeah, well, he actually one of his losses this year, Van Potch, is actually to Javon Henry, who fought us on the Swindon card at the weekend. Okay. So there's a lot of history with this fella, and the Neilson shows, good luck to Aliou and to George Ellis on their debuts. It's the start of hopefully good things to come.
Indeed, and one final fight to cap off this Fight Town podcast before we go on and speak to Shabir Haidary finally is Bilal Fawaz. He's fighting at middleweight against Vasif Maindov, it looks like it again. We've spoken about some of the fights previously. It looks like it should be a foregone conclusion, but you just never know with these journeymen, do you? It could go either way. But
this one, I wanted to leave this one till last for a reason, because it's a funny one, because Bilal's won every one of his fights. He's 3-0, but he's won all 3 within 3 rounds. So he's obviously, got a bit of power, and when he gets someone hurt, he takes them out of there. But he's coming up against this Russian fella who he's only been stopped twice in 30 fights, so something's got to give. But he's very, very active in the UK, Mabadov as well. So I'm not 100% sure on if he's fought on Neilson shows before. He may have done, but like I say, something's got to give, hasn't it? Either Mabadov's going to give him a hard night's work, and I mean, Bilal, you'd expect to at worst win on points. We'll see. But he'll definitely want to go in there and keep that the KO record going.
Indeed he will. So Fight Town podcast listeners, York Hall this Saturday. It's the 1st of October. Get your tickets, get down there and see it, because I'm telling you now, it's one hell of a show.
Absolutely.
Neilson Boxing put on. Rob, should we move on and have a chat with Shabir Haidary, who fought in Swindon? It's going to be an intriguing chat. He's a lovely guy. Should we move on to it?
Yeah, let's do it. Go on.
Let's go. Right, this next part of the podcast on Fight Town podcast, we are going to be talking with Shabir Haidary, who is a boxer who is currently boxing on Neilson Boxing as we speak, with myself, Alex the Box tonight, and boxing Rob Shrew. Rob, how are you?
Yeah, all good, mate. You're right.
Excellent, not too bad. And Shabir, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. All good, mate. All good. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all, Shabir. Now, Shabir, you're off the back of a fantastic stoppage victory on Swindon the weekend. How did it feel in that fight, and how did it go?
It was great. I mean, what a confident booster coming out of an injury, being out of the ring for a year. Again, it was almost like I'm having my debut again.
Yeah.
And to win it in that way and to make it look that easy. I mean, there's levels to this game.
Absolutely.
And on Saturday.
Yeah, brilliant, Shabir. And you know, you look good in the ring on the weekend, and that sort of style you've got at the moment, is that something you've been working on for a long time? That sort of come forward, and I noticed as well you sort of switch between orthodox and southpaw. Is that something that you sort of continue to bring to your game?
Yes, I think definitely. I mean, I will continue to switch. It depends who's going to be in front of me. Whatever style I find difficult, that's what I'm going to bring to the table, because I can box. I can.
Brilliant. And obviously, Jake came in with a losing record, but he had only been stopped twice, and in a quite a long sort of journeyman career so far. What do you think made you stand out to the other guys who couldn't take him out of there? Shabir, you still there? Oh, sorry, Shabir. I'm not sure if you heard that. Obviously Jake Pollard, tough guy. He'd only been stopped twice so far. What do you think made yourself and your performance stand out and be able to get him out of there?
I think again, being out of the ring for a whole year and coming out of an injury, not being confident fully to let go of my hands. It is difficult, but then again, even not, I didn't have the confidence going into the fight. All I wanted to make sure I don't get injured, because I wanted to get out again. And I did that. I'm injury free, but at the same time, I showed it that I can actually box and I can pick my shot as well. To be honest, I find that I find it very easy. I mean, at the end of the first round, I didn't even sweat. Nothing was. It felt like the easiest fight ever. Nothing against Jack Pollard or anything like that. I think I hit another milestone in my game where I just stepped it up to another level. I think I'm ready to step it up even more in my next fight. This showed, like, even though I was out for a year, I still improved a lot in the gym. I still stayed in the gym. I still trained hard all the way through, regardless of the injury.
Fantastic. And obviously, you mentioned now about your injury and you've come out relatively injury free. If you don't mind us asking, how's your hand?
My hand is perfect. I mean, I've had physio. I've done the MRI scan. The good thing is it wasn't structurally damaged. It was just like a tissue damage, but because the part of the hand it was injured, the knuckle, you continuously punch with it. If you continuously cause it impact, the healing process takes a long time. So I think it was very hard for me to sit back and not punch with it. Still train, but not punch with it. It is hard for any boxer not to be a boxer and not punch. But yeah, I mean, I listened to my physio, I listened to my coaches, and the recovery went really well. And my hand is 100% back to normal, back to where it was. I mean, on Saturday, he showed it. Like, I stopped him to the body. Every shot I threw was with my right hand, and that's the hand that was injured. So he showed that there's nothing that I need to worry about in the future. I'm fully confident going into the next fight.
That's great to hear, Shabir. Now, Shabir, I saw some clips of you in training, and I did notice in your first fight and in training, you do quite like a left to the body, don't you? Is that a shot that you've worked on, or is that a particular favourite of yours?
I mean, I do like a body shot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I tried. I mean, that was going into this fight. I wanted to, because Jack Pollard he's a tough journeyman. He was. I mean, he's been in the game for a long time. He knows how to get around the ring.
Yeah.
And watching a couple of his fights, and I knew that the only way I could hurt him was to the body, and he kind of protected his left side, protected his left side quite well. So I had to go for the protected his right side well, so I had to go to the left.
Yeah, and Shabir, just a quick one with that, fighting these journeymen, it's boxers always, especially when you're starting out in your career, say that these fights are sometimes the toughest fights, because you don't really get what you're about. You don't get to show your counter boxing ability. You don't really get to show, what happens if you're pulled into the trenches. Are you saying to Fight Town fans listening, and obviously Sport This Song listeners, that there's far more to come from Shabir Haidary in the future?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at my first professional fight, I've been, again, I was out of the ring for 2 years due to the COVID. I fought somebody who had, again, it was their debut as well as mine, and they came to win the fight. A lot of things went wrong in that camp, a lot of learnings. I learned a lot from it. And then going into this next fight, again, prepared, as ready as I could have been, although there was still a lot more that I could offer. But I think on Saturday that I showed I could box. I mean, I could fight, that's for sure. I could take people out, and sometimes that's all you need to take people out. When you get to those top level fights, when you get to those top level, you need to be a good boxer, yes, but sometimes you need to be able to take a punch and also get him out of there.
Absolutely.
And you will. I mean, you will definitely see me boxing a lot more with different fights, different opponents you put in front of me. I'm going to show you a new style every single time. The fans will never get bored of me, because every time they will see a different Shab. That's for sure.
Well, that takes me nicely onto what I was about to say. Actually, you're developing a bit of a reputation already after a couple of fights as being a bit of a crowd pleaser. How was it on Saturday night? Obviously, it had been a while. How was it under the lights in front of all those people, and getting your first KO in front of them as well?
Oh, I mean, it was great. I thank all my fans, all my sponsors, for continually supporting me and coming there, spending their hard-earned money to come and watch me. So it is my duty to make sure every fight I have, and I need to please my fan. I need to make it worth their while. When they come in, they need to know it was worth it to buy tickets and to come and watch me. So I think I am going to do that continuously throughout my fights.
Love that.
Yeah, fantastic, Shabir. And when are we expecting to see you back out on a Neilson Boxing show?
I mean, if I could have been out on that same night, I haven't even started. Yeah, I think I was only in my second gear. You see me with Jake Pollard, that was my second gear. I haven't even tapped into the third one, fourth one, or fifth one yet. That was only I was saying, come on, bring me another guy. I want to be fighting 2 fights under the same night. Bring me another guy. But
I don't know how Mark Neilson would feel about doing that.
I know. But yeah, I mean, I was ready. That was just a warm-up for me, to be honest. That was a warm-up. I would like to have gone a bit longer. However, I am happy with if you can get him out there, then for sure, why not? That's what the fan likes, and that's what the fans wants to see.
Definitely. And obviously, I would imagine over the next year, especially with having a year out, that you're going to want to remain active over the next sort of 6 to 12 months.
Oh, absolutely. I've got another one already lined up. Straight after the fight, I spoke to Mark Neilson. I said, when is your next show? I want to be out as soon as possible. And he said, I've got one you can get on 26th of November. So that's the next date that I'm working on to get. Again, you will see a different Shab, as I said before. You will definitely see a different guy there. You know, whoever they put in front of me, it's going to be a great night.
Brilliant.
Fantastic, Shabir. Now, Fight Town listeners, Sport This Song listeners, Shabir Haidary is a boxer to look out for. Like I said earlier on in the interview, he switches between orthodox and southpaw, which is quite amazing to see in the ring. And Shabir is due back out in November. Rob, anything else to ask Shabir before we let him?
No, good to go. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us, and congratulations again, mate.
Oh, thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on this podcast, and I hope all the listeners have enjoyed it. And I mean, I would love to see all of you guys come and support me in the fight, and I'm sure you will. None of you will be disappointed how I fight. You definitely enjoy it.
Superb.
Excellent. And on that note, Sport This Song listeners, Fight Town podcasts listeners, if you can get yourself to a Neilson Boxing show, they are absolutely fantastic. Plenty of 50-50 fights on the show, and you get to see new talent like Shabir Haidary on there as well. It's fantastic. You can follow us on Twitter, Sport the Song, and also if you can like and subscribe to this podcast, that would be absolutely fantastic. And we shall see you on the next show. Take care.
Cheers, Shabir.
Perfect. Thank you, mate.